Hi, my name's Simon Baldock, and this podcast is called Tales from a Very Minor Celebrity. It's the story of how I conquered my insecurities and shyness and went on to have a 35-year career in broadcasting, both in the UK and in Spain. You'll hear some of my most memorable celebrity interviews and all the adventures I've had and the stories behind them. Like the time I delivered half a carcass of beef to Margaret Thatcher at 10 Downing Street, and the time I carried £1 million worth of diamonds on the tube in an old Sainsbury's bag on the way to a photo shoot with Lord Snowdon at the Ritz. I'm back, and so is my voice. Welcome to another edition of Tales from a Very Minor Celebrity, and thank you for your patience. I've spent a lovely few weeks back in Spain, where I lived for 6 years, and got over a throaty infection of some sort, which I'm sure I picked up on the flight over there. Anyway, it was great to get some Spanish sunshine on these old bones, rest my throat, and come back fit and healthy, and a little bit tanned to start recording more episodes of my podcast. Now, as promised at the end of episode 6, I said you'd hear from 2 child actors who I had the pleasure of speaking to some years ago when I went through a stage of contacting stars from some of my favourite programmes back in the day. And I'm talking about when I was still at school, so these are cult classics from the 70s, all American programmes such as the original Star Trek, The Dukes of Hazzard, Starsky and Hutch, The A-Team and the Beverly Hillbillies, those sorts of programmes. So what I used to do was to contact the stars of these shows through their websites, and to my amazement, everyone, and I mean everyone who I contacted without exception, agreed to do an interview with me. Mind you, it did help that I was working for the BBC at the time, and having a BBC email address does open quite a few doors. Anyway, over the next few weeks, I'll play you some of these interviews, starting with 2 child actors, Butch Patrick, who played Eddie Munster in The Munsters, and Billy Mumy, who was Will Robinson in Lost in Space. Danger, Will Robinson, danger! That's the one. Well, Butch Patrick was born Patrick Alan Lilly in 1953, and as well as being an actor, he's also a musician. He began his professional acting career at the age of 7, and is best known, of course, for his role as the child werewolf Eddie Munster on the CBS comedy series The Munsters, which aired between 1964 and 1966, and also in the feature film in 1966 called Munster Go Home. He also appeared on the ABC Saturday morning series Lidsville. Nope, I'd never heard of it either, but that ran from 1971 to 1973. But of course, it's The Munsters, which is still a huge part of his life. And I began by asking him about his memories of being on the show.
Mostly I remember I used to just spend a lot of time at the studio exploring when I wasn't working and or when I wasn't in school. It was a great place to go poke around and see the magical world of movie making.
And what about the actual process of getting the role? How did it all happen for you?
I was in Illinois. They had looked at over 500 children for this part, and my agent got me an interview. They flew me out for a screen test, and for some reason they liked me, and they hired me on the spot. Wow. And it was my 3rd series. When I was 11 years old, I had done 2 series beforehand, so I was a veteran, but I was still I looked very young for my age, and they liked that.
Were you looked after by the other members of the cast?
Cast was wonderful. They were very nice folks. They all had families of their own. They were great. They knew it could be troublesome for a kid to be by himself, so they took the time and the effort to show me around and let me play baseball with me or throw a frisbee or to let me be a kid. But at the same time, they were very patient with my development.
Fred Gwynne, who of course played Herman Munsters, unfortunately, he's sadly not with us anymore. What about the rest of the cast? Do you still see each other?
As a matter of fact, yesterday I was in a show with Grandpa Al Lewis. I drove up to see Yvonne DiCarlo, who played my mother, about 2 weeks ago to take her some photos. Wow. And around Halloween over here, we all get together and we tour around and see each other at haunted houses.
Because I suppose Halloween's big business for you.
Yes, in the month of October, I almost make close to maybe half my entire annual income from that 1 month.
Wow. And what have you been doing since those days with the Munsters?
Well, I worked until I was 21 in the business. I started phasing out when I was 18 because, I'd worked all my life and I had a few dollars saved up and I wanted to enjoy the beach and, what kids do. But mostly I have done promotions and had a few small businesses and worked in the gambling industry. And ever since MTV came on the air about 17 years ago, I have been working on the fringes of music with promotions and video and things like that.
The Munsters, was it a help to you or a hindrance? Looking back now, would you have preferred to have done something else?
Well, that's one of those things you can always look back, but honestly, I wouldn't change anything. But really, I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was very difficult, hard work because of the makeup and the special effects, and the set was very dirty. But at the same time, it was a one-of-a-kind, unusual show that will never be duplicated, and it was, on paper, it didn't look very good. It looked like a bomb. But when the characters and the actors came to life, it was surprisingly funny and witty. Well, that was Butch Patrick, and during his almost 6-decade-long acting career, he appeared in around 60 television shows and films. However, the majority of his appearances came as supporting roles or guest appearances. According to Patrick, it was actress Yvonne De Carlo who played Herman Munster's wife Lily, who made a huge impact on his personal as well as his professional life since he worked alongside her in the show The Munsters. She not only helped him in his acting career, but also provided support in his personal life as a mentor and friend. He obviously had a very special place for her in his heart. Butch Patrick was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2011. However, due to the early detection of the disease, he has made a full recovery. Today, Patrick does the occasional film and television work, including making cameo appearances as himself on episodes of the Fox animated television series The Simpsons. Yep, he's been on that. And in the 2003 comedy film Dickie Roberts, former child star, as well as appearing as a grown-up Eddie Munster in the Little Caesars pizza commercial. The rest of the time, he has a great time just travelling the world as a celebrity guest of car shows, conventions and autograph shows, as well as being Mr. Halloween, providing consulting services to the haunted house attraction industry. Butch also exports classic cars to Australia, so he obviously has a very good life. Now, on to our second child star, Billy Mumy. Even before Lost in Space, he appeared in a number of 60s TV classics, including Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie, The Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and a starring role in the film Dear Bridget, opposite Hollywood legend James Stewart and Brigitte Bardot, lucky boy. And in the 1990s, he played the role of Lanier in all 5 seasons of the sci-fi TV series Babylon 5. But of course, it's his role as Will Robinson in Lost in Space that he still remembers with great fondness.
I started working when I was 5, and Lost in Space came along when I was 11, I believe. But I loved every day of going to work on that show. Playing Will Robinson was like being a little superhero in a comic book to me.
Yeah.
I've always been a huge fan of that genre, superhero comic books. And finally, here I was able to get your kind of spacesuit costume and a ray gun and a robot and be the hero all the time. I looked forward to getting up and going to work. So it was great. I still see those people socially all the time.
Really?
Jonathan Harris, who played Dr. Smith, he and I have the same voiceover agent. We recently did 2 episodes of Disney's animated Buzz Lightyear cartoon series together.
Oh, wow.
And we go to dinner, maybe once every month or 2. I see Angela Cartwright. We've been working on this fantasy novel together. And maybe once or twice a year there's some kind of a publicity appearance where the whole group gets together. And it's really nice to see those people. And
what did you think of the Lost in Space movie?
I thought it was an uneven film. I think it's hard to tell a good time displacement story, and of course that script had a time displacement theme going throughout it. Of course, I have to question my own objectivity about it.
Sure.
But I know that some of the original cast had cameo appearances in it. Jonathan Harris, Dr. Smith, and myself didn't. So a classic Lost in Space cast reunion without Will and Dr. Smith is kind of like a Stones reunion without Keith and Mick. What it really did was it made the old series even more popular with people.
Something else I wanted to talk to you about as well was your appearance in a marvellous film called Dear Bridget, which was a great favourite of mine because, A, I lusted after Brigitte Bardot, as most young men did, I suppose, around those years. And it also starred the great Jimmy Stewart. Yeah, it must have been fantastic for you to be working with such a great actor.
Well, that was one of my fondest memories of my work as a child actor. I spent basically 10 weeks every day working with Mr. Stewart, just the two of us. So we certainly carried the bulk of that film together. And he was just such an amazing gentleman and really showed you how it should be done. There was never any star trips or emotional, fits from him. He was always there hanging out with everybody, a real gentleman and just the consummate actor. And I thought we had a wonderful screen chemistry together. Of course, the scenes with Brigitte Bardot were pretty cool for me. I was the first American actor to receive a screen kiss from Brigitte Bardot. She was, she turned 30 when we were making that project, so she was certainly an awesome sight of feminine reality.
Were you too young to appreciate it, though?
No, I wasn't. And I'll tell you what, one of the funny moments I remember there, sitting there and kind of checking out her cleavage and, and enjoying the view.
Mumy was one of the few original cast members of the TV show not to have a cameo in the 1998 film. Mumy had wanted to play the adult version of Will Robinson, but the producers thought it might be confusing for audiences and they cast Gerard Harris instead. But in 2018, Mumy did feature in the pilot episode of the Netflix remake series. His character's name was Dr. Smith, in homage to the character played by Jonathan Harris in the original 1965 TV series. Billy Mumy is still very busy these days. He's a prolific voiceover artist, appears in films and TV shows, and is a very accomplished musician. He plays the banjo, bass, harmonica, keyboards, mandolin and percussion. His various musical credits include songs he has written and recorded with America, performed on tour with Sean Cassidy, and played with Rick Springfield's band in the film Hard to Hold. He also created the band B5 with other Babylon 5 actors. And that's it for this week. Now next week you'll hear some more interviews I've done with the stars from TV shows from my childhood. And next week it's the original Star Trek series. And you'll hear from Mr. Sulu, George Takei, and Captain Kirk himself, William Shatner.
Star Trek has been such a huge part of your life. Have you ever thought what would have happened if you hadn't got that role as James T. Kirk?
I came into Star Trek with a fair amount of celebrity, and it wasn't news to me to be my name to be up there in the lights and people coming to see me. And subsequently, the tremendous popularity of Star Trek made me popular. Was different, it was more intense, but it's always been a part of my life. So I've almost all of my adult life has been spent in the limelight. So I don't know too much else. So no, I have not thought very often what would it have been like, because so much has befallen me as a result of being in Star Trek.
That's next week on Tales from a Very Minor Celebrity.